So interesting developments when it comes to what happened after the Bloomberg article dropped about Nintendo cutting production from 6 million units in the first 3 or 4 months or so to 4 million units, which just sounds pretty crazy because why would Nintendo be forecasting that much in the first place in a particularly slow quarter without anything super big or major coming out that you can determine beforehand, like a brand new Zelda game or Animal Crossing or Pokemon game like Winds and Waves, not a spin-off Pokemon game. So just a little bit weird when it comes to that. So coming off the heels of that, we have this new report from Mat Piscatella that kind of pours a bunch of cold water over what Bloomberg was trying to say and essentially just kind of discredits it, as it seems like he's writing it off as clickbait based off of what he talked about on his channel. And I know I covered it just a bit on my live stream and maybe in my video, but I wanted to go over it because we have some percentages of just how much better the Nintendo Switch 2 has sold than every other system tracked in the history of Circana, and before that NPD and the sales beforehand. There's only one system that's actually sold better here in the US, tracked all the way through February of 2026, that is sold better in that first 9 months. And we're going to go over that plus a lot more. But before we continue on, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2. All you have to do to enter is hit that subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed, and drop a comment below. We are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 once we hit 150,000 subscribers, and it will be random. So the more that you actually comment and interact, the better chance that you have to win. Hit that like button, click that notification bell, and let's go ahead and jump right back into it. So starting off here on Blue Sky, Mat Piscatella, he had a couple different things to say. First, talking about the article with Bloomberg, and it says, "Wake up, babe. The spiritual successor to the Switch story is exhausted. Article just dropped." So he was essentially referring, and I talked about this before in a previous video, live stream and stuff. He's referring to the article that Bloomberg wrote, and he feels that it's kind of just not correct because Bloomberg did write multiple articles saying that the Switch story is exhausted, nobody's buying it anymore, they're cutting the forecast, they need to cut the price of the system, it's not selling, it's panic mode, and all this stuff just to affect the stock price and things like that. And as we all know, the Nintendo Switch 1 is the second best selling system of all time, and it never really sold bad when it comes to its first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year. It wasn't until the very end of its life, as we knew that the Nintendo Switch 2 was coming, and as they sold 100 million plus units, that you started to see really a downtick. But at the beginning, Bloomberg would just write anything whenever they saw a cut in forecast or something. They would just pounce on it and talk about how they need to do all these different things. So he's essentially talking about that. And on top of that, there's been multiple times that Nintendo, Sony, and Square Enix have came out and directly refuted things that Takashi Mochizuki, the writer that wrote this recent one, had to say. So Mat Piscatella, he gave his own counterpoint to it, and I wanted to go over it because I think some people don't even actually know this information. So he stated that the Nintendo Switch 2 remains the second fastest selling hardware in tracked US history from 1995 to currently right now, only behind the immortal Game Boy Advance, which I think launched at $99 back in like 2000 or something like that. So if you look at the tracking here, when it comes to the US Nintendo Switch 2 hardware install base compared to other consoles after 9 months in the market, so that's from the launch to February, the Switch 2 is absolutely blown out so many systems. It's 302% over the Wii U, 139% over the GameCube, 120% in the same time frame over the 360, 96% over the Nintendo 3DS, 73% over the Xbox series of systems, 61% over the Xbox One, 56% over the PlayStation 2, 45% over the Nintendo Switch 1, 34% over the Nintendo Wii, 30% over the PlayStation 4, and 29% over the PlayStation 5, with once again only the GBA having a slight lead on it. So when I've seen so many people come out and state that, oh, it's not selling well and it flopped in the US and it's flopping overall worldwide, and just not accurate at all based on the actual data. I have seen some people try to accuse Mat Piscatella, you know, grifter channels and things like that, of being like some type of undercover plant or Nintendo hardcore fan, and he's defending it and all of this stuff, and it's like he just has the actual numbers. Circana has the actual data that all of the companies recognize as factual data, and he's putting the actual data out there for people to see. because Takahashi Mochizuki does not have the actual data. He has rumors, and he's not using what it sold. He's using it for stocks and affecting the stock market, because what Takahashi Mochizuki and Bloomberg did, they didn't actually have when it comes to Nintendo's real reports of production. It's just a rumor, where this is actual data. So the Nintendo Switch 2 is selling great, and I think it's going to continue selling really good. Plus, we can all just see the reports that Nintendo's already put out. 17 plus million in the first 7 months, actually a little bit underneath that. That is a record. 15 million sell through within that same time frame as well, significantly faster than the Nintendo Switch 1. So based on everything that we do know, Nintendo Switch 2 is selling great, and it's going to continue selling well based off what we're seeing here with Pokopia and other games. Pokemon Pokopia is helping to provide a big boost. So when I see people saying that it's not selling well, or that it's flopping, or that it's not going to do good based off of this report, that's not a fact. That's their own rumor. It's just a rumor report on production cutting back some for potential sales that were weak in the US for the holiday, and not going forward in terms of potential new games or directs or whatever the case is. It just makes me kind of just shrug it off just a bit. I know Kit from Kit and Krista podcast, he talked about it as well, where he actually stated that multiple times when he was working at Nintendo, they would see these articles from Takahashi Mochizuki and say, wait a minute, that's not correct.
There is a very rocky relationship between this particular writer at Bloomberg and at Nintendo, to the point where Nintendo has actually come out on their Twitter before and claimed specifically that an article that was written from them was not true. And take it from me, it takes a lot for them to come out and publicly denounce a piece of writing from a media outlet like they did here. And this was something that we had to deal with a lot internally, where an article would run from this person and we would see it and be like, I'm not sure about all of this information that they are claiming. And it didn't mean that we would always come out and denounce it, but there was always a lot of head shaking of like, where is this coming from?
And sometimes they would call it out, sometimes they wouldn't. He also talked about how Nintendo sometimes has crazy expectations when it comes to what they're supposed to be selling. But ultimately, he's not really worried about it at all, because it's still selling very good. And we have the actual facts when it comes to the data here. I do think that Nintendo does have to transition into what they're going to do next when it comes to like the next steps for the Nintendo Switch 2, as once again, the second calendar year after the first year going into the second year is very important. So of course, get your games launched when it comes to like Mario Wonder for the Nintendo Switch 2, Pokemon Champions, Yoshi, get all that stuff launched that we know the dates of that coming out. April 8th for Pokemon Champions. That game looks like it's going to be crazy based off of the #1 on trending yesterday when it dropped when it comes to the trailer. But I do think that getting that next Nintendo Direct set up anytime before July would be good. And of course, having a big Nintendo Direct, be it that they have the Mario movie coming up, so obviously that's going to be huge as well. But I do think that that Nintendo Direct does have to have at least one or more of the big system selling legacy franchises. So something like Zelda, Mario, Smash Brothers, Animal Crossing, and Splatoon isn't really a legacy franchise, but it's a big system seller. So we got to see what's happening with Splatoon Raiders or Splatoon 4 potentially with that. And I also think that we still need some good showings for games that Nintendo has already announced that people are looking forward to. Games like the Dust Bloods, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, and of course some good quality third-party games as well. I do think that a collaboration or two would be pretty cool. So a collaboration like Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, Age of Imprisonment, these were made by Koei Tecmo, but of course with the Nintendo first-party IP. So letting some type of great third party develop a classic IP like Star Fox, F-Zero, Golden Sun, these type of games. So I think that if Nintendo does a number of those, one of those, when it comes to each of the things that I talked about here with the big Nintendo Direct, have a great showing for the Mario movie, have people go out for that, have a good showing for some of the games here that are coming out with Mario Wonder Switch 2 edition, in addition to the Pokemon Champions game and Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. I think that they're going to be actually set up pretty good, especially when they get that next Nintendo Direct coming out here. So those are the actual sales truth when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2 and what's happening here. So you guys can let me know in the comment section below. But now we are going to move on to the next topic here, and that's going to be a potential Switch 2 edition for Sonic Frontiers, or a new edition of the game with extra content. So the Game Rating and Administration Committee of Korea has rated the unannounced Sonic Frontiers Definitive Edition, is what they're calling it. Now, Sonic Frontiers first launched for the PlayStation 5 Xbox Series, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch 1, and PC via Steam on November 8th, 2022, achieving lifetime sales of at least 4.57 million units, which is pretty good at this point for a 3D Sonic game. Now, it received various post-launch content in the form of free updates. Now, this definitive edition is not new for a recent Sonic game. Both Sonic Origins and Sonic Mania received definitive editions via the Sonic Origins Plus and Sonic Mania Plus. The reveal of Sonic Origins Plus also first leaked via the Game Rating and Administration Committee of Korea. So I think that this would be pretty cool if they're able to kind of pack everything in on the disc for definitive edition, add some new content in there. But the big thing for me, at least, because I did buy this game on PlayStation 5 and it's okay. Like, I understand the vision of what they were trying to do. I didn't love the game that much, but I do think there's some promise in the game, and I might check it out if they did a Nintendo Switch 2 edition with all of that extra content on the cartridge, or a free upgrade from the Nintendo Switch 1 version, or more like you can pay 10 bucks or 20 bucks or whatever and get the upgrade. Now, if they did that, because I do have the game on the original Nintendo Switch, I think, but I played it more, or I played a lot more of it on the PlayStation 5. So a definitive edition with a Switch 2 bump up when it comes to resolution and frame rate, because the frame rate and resolution in Sonic Frontiers is not necessarily great. Portable mode, not necessarily great on the Nintendo Switch 1. So getting that bumped up and better on the Nintendo Switch 2 would be really nice. And like the sales numbers say here, 4.57 million, and we haven't gotten an update on those sales numbers in a while, so maybe it's nearing closer to 5 million units in sales with discounts and all that. I think that's not bad. And if they do a definitive edition release, I definitely think 5 million plus for this game would be achievable. So that's awesome, man. Like, I want to see Sonic do well. I think that they're probably prepping and getting ready for Sonic Frontiers 2, or the next iteration of their open world Sonic type of game. I think they're going to build off of what they have. They're not going to reinvent the wheel like they've done sometimes with Sonic 3D games. I think they're actually going to build off of this one and make a better game. So we will see with that. But for right now, it does seem like a definitive edition release is coming. I just hope that they have a Switch 2 edition of that. So what do you guys think about Sonic Frontiers definitive edition getting rated in Korea? Something that you'd go back and check out depending on the content? Let me know in the comment section below. We also have another game confirmation for the Nintendo Switch 2. Marvel Rivals has been 100% confirmed for the Switch 2. They have talked about it at the Game Developers Conference. IGN had an interview with the executive producer, Marvel Games executive producer Danny Koo, if there was a Switch 2 version still being considered, and in response, he confirmed to IGN that it was actually in progress already. Quote, "We're working on it, but when we have news, we'll announce that one." And they also stated that just to be super sure, he was really confirming a Switch 2 version at last. IGN reworded the question and asked again. He again confirmed, saying, "We will do it." So Marvel Rivals was a huge breakout hit when it comes to Xbox, PlayStation, PC. So it coming over to Nintendo Switch 2 is absolutely a good thing. Now, I did play a bit of Marvel Rivals on the PlayStation 5, and I think I played one game with Storm, and I'm like, okay, it's like Overwatch, but with the Marvel characters, and it's a fine game in its own right. I think that there's going to be a lot of people that would love to be able to play a game like Marvel Rivals on the Nintendo Switch 2. But the game is super popular and people really like the game. People still play. It's got a good player base, and they're still adding new characters and having a lot of great combat and things to do in the game. People do enjoy it when it comes to the balance and everything. It seems like they're taking fan feedback and what players are saying into account when they make adjustments and other things. Now, I do think that, like Gambit, I want to kind of get Gambit and play as him in the game, because that's one of my favorite Marvel mutants out there. I love Venom, I love Gambit, I love Storm. So maybe I'll check it out. Gambit launches, Nintendo Switch 2 version launches, maybe I'll check it out and see what I can do. I do think that Marvel Rivals, having that game, that type of big game on the Switch 2 is a benefit to the system, and it's going to help more people actually say, okay, maybe I want to pick up a Nintendo Switch 2 so I can play my Marvel Rivals game anywhere that I want. So if I'm traveling or something else, I don't have to worry about bringing portable PC or something weird. When it comes down to it, you have a dedicated version of Marvel Rivals right there for you to play. So good news for Marvel Rivals fans. All right, moving on to the next topic here, guys. We've got Mouse P.I For Hire. We've got the physical and digital editions have been officially revealed, and the cool cool thing about the physical edition, they have one for the PlayStation 5 and they have one for the Nintendo Switch 2, and the Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game is going to be full on cart. But they also have a bunch of different editions of the game. We've got the prices and everything because this game looks kind of crazy. A lot of unique animations, kind of has like that old school, I would say 30s cartoon art style and everything, kind of like the Cuphead type of stuff, but black and white, so maybe it's older than that. But I do like the style. I like what they're trying to do with this game. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun and have some nice polish to it as well. So the physical editions will be available on July 10th. So if you want the physical edition, it will be available at that date. But you also have to remember that the physical edition on the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to cost $10 more than the PlayStation 5 version. So if you want it on PS5, it's $29.99. If you want it on Nintendo Switch 2, it's $39.99. Now you can just get the digital editions for $29.99 across all platforms or $39.99 across all platforms, but there is a Switch 2 full cart tax, like we saw with the Nintendo Switch 1 with a lot of games. We're getting it here on Nintendo Switch 2 anywhere from $10 to $15. I know Shenmue 3 has a $15 Switch 2 cart tax, so if you want the full physical on cartridge, you're just going to have to pay a bit more for some of these games. There's also Deluxe Mouseburg Edition that is $50 on the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PC, and all of that, and $60 on the Nintendo Switch 2. So keep that in mind when it comes to that. Now, it comes with a bunch of different stuff, so if you want to check it out, Gamatsu has the full write-up, and I'll have a picture or two when it comes to that. But I haven't covered this game at all, but I wanted to cover it because it does look like it'd be something that you guys would be interested in, and there's some nice little goodies here, and we're seeing more developers put out full cartridges on the Nintendo Switch 2. Some indie developers, Super Meat Boy, we also have now this game as well. So the more developers putting out full cartridges is definitely a good thing. Now, I don't know for sure if this game is part of the rollout of potentially having smaller Switch cartridges, because as many of you guys know, or if you don't know, right now the Nintendo Switch 2 only has 64 gigabyte cartridges, which some developers aren't going to want to pay for. So it does seem like maybe Nintendo's put out some smaller cartridges, because there was one developer that came out and said, oh, there's new cartridges now. And then they retracted the statement because you're not supposed to say stuff like that. So maybe they're going to actually start rolling those out. But once again, we'll have to wait and see. Once the person gets the game, they can open it up and see if it's 64 gigabytes or if it's something smaller. So what do you guys think when it comes to everything that we talked about here? A lot of discussions and different games. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.